The Strike Eagle is here, guys. The F-15E and the F-15I were added to the game in this update with the dev server. So let's take a look on the aircraft, both of them, to have our first impressions on how they fly, what they are carrying with sensors and loadouts, how they're going to be with the new weapons, and how it's feeling to fly the aircraft, basically, right? Of course, this is all subject to change, as always. It is a very early access to the dev server, and yeah, we shall see how it is actually being implemented, okay? So the first thing that we're going to check it out is the flight model. So the first thing that we're gonna do is test the flight model of the aircraft. So here we are as light as we can without the conformal field things, without any weapon systems, to check it out how the aircraft is. It looks beautiful with no conformal field things. It looks a lot slimmer than it actually, I mean, it looks like an F-15B, right? But yeah, without the conformal field things, without any payload, the aircraft is actually very nimble. Very similar to the F-15C. It is going to be obviously heavier, but as you see, the aircraft can pull very well, guys. It is a very good aircraft, no matter what, right? You gotta think that first, the F-15E for the US is the worst one. Yes, it is the worst one, guys. It is the one that has less engine thrust, so you will feel that when you are flying the aircraft, especially as light as this, or maybe even when you are, I mean, heavy, right? So because you have a lot of, you know, more power. It's like 20% or more, so it's a lot more power. So it is, although very fast accelerating, and when you are light as this, you're not really like feeling too much difference from the F-15C. When you are heavy, you can see that the aircraft is a lot more sluggish, obviously, right, guys? You wouldn't expect this thing to be having the same feeling. So that's the main thing that you have to worry about this aircraft. If you don't take your conformal field things, if you don't take any air to ground, for an air battle, it is actually pretty amazing. I mean, even at this, I mean, even with these payload, I mean, we are only using 12 minutes. I don't think the conformal field tanks are like filled in that place, so they should be filled, but still, it is still a very nimble aircraft, even with a lot of weight. If you take a little bit more fuel, now with the conformal fuel tanks filled, we can actually properly take a look on how much the aircraft just is more sluggish, okay? So this is the thing, right? It's an aircraft that the fuel will actually kill this thing, you know, in the dogfights and stuff. So what I will try to say to you guys, and I will show to you guys some of the weapon loadouts options that we're gonna have here, is that you can actually have the conformal fuel tanks empty. That's probably the best option. Or maybe have them basically filled, but then the minimal fuel. Because look at this, this would be the normal loadout that I would take. It's not a lot of fuel, guys. It's 40 minutes. It's not really a lot of fuel. But with the like whole bunch of weapons and stuff, it becomes really sluggish. So that's the thing that you have to have in mind, obviously, right? I mean, it's a little thing that it's very easy to think about, but yeah, it's not like the F-15 doesn't have a place in the game as a fighter. It does. It is really good. It is really nimble, of course, less than the F-15C, but the good part is that you have the option to use in a tank battle to do ground weapons. Just don't expect the aircraft to have a lot of energy or a lot of, you know, ability to turn. Let's take a look on the Israeli ones, because if you take a look here, back here in the X-ray, oh, we have an F-100 PW20, you know, 220, right? 84 kilonewtons, pretty much the same engine as the good old MSIP2, right? Same engine. But then in the Israelis, we have the F-15I with the cool skin over here. But look at this, boys. He has the 229 engine with 105 kilonewtons. So it is a lot stronger. So you gotta think about this when you are researching these aircraft, because the Israeli one is the best one right now for some reason. It's really weird. So if we are a lot lighter again here, you will notice that the aircraft, look at the amount of power that we have, man. We are pulling as much as we can over here, and the aircraft is just not losing speed. Look at this. He has an immense amount of power, man. This might be the best F-15 in the game just because of that. I mean, we need to use our air brakes over here, take out the afterburner, and then it turns, you know. It really turns well. It's not gonna be the best third fighter in the game, but it's one of the best. And of course, it's gonna be worse than the F-15C, but it's still pretty good. And remember, this is the one that, of course, it has extra weight, but it has like 20% more power, man. So the Israeli ones, for sure, are the best ones, you know. If we have a little bit more weight over here with a more realistic, you know, feeling of the weight that we are gonna actually use in an air battle, you can see that, of course, it still accelerates very fast, very similar to the F-15C. Somebody needs to test this. And you see in the turning capability, yeah, it is heavy, guys. It is heavy. Don't expect this thing to actually be dogfighting very well compared to an F-16 or maybe even an Su-27, depending on the situation. But it doesn't mean that the aircraft cannot turn. It's just that when it's heavy at the start of the match, it will be very, very heavy. So this is it for the fly model, okay? So remember, the Israeli ones have more power. Everything else in the fly model is pretty much the same between the two. And then we go for the sensors here in the hangar, guys. We have the APG-70, a new radar, very, very good, 120 kilometers of range for small targets, so it's really, really good. It really is one of the best radars in the game. That's why it's gonna be such a cool aircraft, because you have a very good radar. Of course, as other sensors, we have the good old lightning tube pod, the lantern pod, sorry. And then, of course, an RWR, normal RWR, nothing too fancy. The same ALR 56C that the F-16, the F-15C MSIP2 has, you know, so it will be basically the same. So, of course, a helmet-mounted sight as well, and everything with that, okay? With the Israeli ones, we do have the APG-70I, which in real life has worse modes for air-to-ground. I don't know if it's gonna have any differences in the game, but in real life it is a little bit different. But everything else is the same. The RWR is the same. The HMS, everything with that is, if I'm not mistaken, the same, even the lantern pod. And while we are here, let's talk about the loadouts, guys, because we do have some interesting things over here. So first things first is that, guys, you have two options over here. You have the option of using the external fuel tanks over here, the conformal fuel tanks, or not. If you go here in edit, for example, you can see that you can actually choose a weapon loadout. I mean, let me test this with the air-to-air loadout over here. You can actually test with this using just the M120 or with the conformal fuel tanks, right? So this would mean that it would fill it up and have the M120s. But if it is a ground attack option, you are obliged to use the conformal fuel tanks. But the thing is, if you actually choose them without the conformal fuel tank thing over here, so for example here we have just the bombs, and then we have the one that I'm using with the conformal fuel tanks and the bombs. If you use them, it will be the same, but the conformal fuel tank will be empty. So this is a way that you can actually have an empty conformal fuel tank or a filled conformal fuel tank. You know, so it's a very, very interesting and very good way for you to actually try to choose whatever type of, you know, weight you're gonna use. For the loadouts themselves, we have some differences between them, but the major thing is, of course, it can carry M120s, AIM-9s, the good old everything. You know, let me choose this one with the conformal fuel tanks over here, as you see. So we have the AIM-120As over here. We have the AIM-9Ms, no derbies nor anything like that, but it's still pretty cool. If you take a look on the American F-15, it is the same. It is using the AIM-120A and the AIM-9M, right? And then in the air-to-ground role is where it really is different from the other F-15s. Of course, you have these pods of countermeasures in the middle over here that you use, which which is pretty cool. Of course, you have the conformal fuel tanks and stuff that I told you guys about. But then in the air to ground, you have the lantern, but then you can choose GBU 24s, for example. Look how many you can take. Very, very cool. It's like what? 7? Yeah, 7. You can take the without the countermeasure here, right? The GBU 31s, the JDAMs, you can take them. The Mark 84. I mean, if we try to use, I mean, here we have 3 loadouts that I would use. These bombs that I'm going to show to you guys. We have laser guided. So if we create another one, you can see we have aim on 20s. I would put aim on 20s on the side over here. We have aim 9s over here. Oh, it's going to be an air to ground roll, right? So you can choose. The sad part is that depending on the loadout, it just removes some missiles. So you got to be careful with that. You have GBU 15s over here, which are pretty cool. You have non-guided stuff, as you see, without a parachute, with a parachute. You have a Maverick G variant with the SAP warhead. You have 3 Mavericks Ds with the heat, or 1 if you want to. You have the GBU 31, the bigger one, the JDAN, sorry, the JDAN smaller one, some guided bombs, as you see. So you can see a lot of things. You can carry a lot of other missiles over here, of course. You can take, here it's basically where you choose the aim 7s and aim on 20s. So conformal fuel tanks, no conformal fuel tanks. Conformal fuel tanks with the aim 7, which is pretty weird. And no conformal fuel tanks. Very cool, right? Then we have the big things over here. We have non-guided bombs, all sorts of them. Mark 84s, Mark 82s, look how many. With drag, without drag, with the conformal fuel tanks full, without them full. You can use just the conformal fuel tanks if you want to. We have GBU 12s with the conformal fuel tanks. You have the JDAMs with the conformal fuel tanks. GBU 10s, which is the older bomb, of course. We have this one that I'm going to show later in the video. So a lot of things, right? Countermeasure pod. Here you can take some other things like a JDAM on the middle. So it's a very, you can take the countermeasure pod or the lantern here. So it's just an incredible amount of bombs and rockets. So let's test flight with some of them, especially the newer ones, so that we can actually take a look on how they feel like when you are flying and using them, right? So here we are in the new, test flight, and I'm using these new bombs. These are GPS guided glide bombs, okay guys? So basically how they work is that they have a GPS guidance and they glide themselves to the target. So like I said, we do have a radar over here. I'm gonna show to you guys at the end of the video. It's the ground radar, but yeah, this is how it works. Basically you have search, pulse Doppler, normal, TWS, normal, medium PRF, high PRF search, high PRF pulse Doppler velocity, and then search GMTI. Something that I don't understand why the Americans don't have is high PRF TWS that every single Russian aircraft has, but yeah, anyway. Before we go to the ground radar, because it won't work here because it doesn't detect standing still targets, but we can do this, guys. So we're gonna just go there. We're gonna choose the GBU 39, which is this new bomb over here, and it's GPS guided, so you go out there and you just click to drop him. So we're gonna just do this, just like the dev server, the dev stream that they did, right? We have a lot of bombs, they're very small bombs, of course, but yeah, they open their wings and they fly to the target. And of course they're GPS guided, so they won't be able to, destroy anything that is moving normally, right? Come on, explode everybody. There you go. Look at those. It's such a cool thing, man, isn't it? I missed some, but it's pretty cool. So if you take a look on here, and let me just, yeah, see, it turns itself and then it rolls. So pretty cool. You have JDANs, you have everything. One thing that you have to notice as well is that in the RAM version we have basically everything that the US has, pretty much the same. apart from the Mavericks, okay? So the Mavericks are not here, but you still can use our like beloved GBU-39s that I told you guys about. Look how many guided bombs you can take. So it's pretty interesting, right? So before we wrap the aircraft up, we're gonna test it out in a real battle over here in the custom, how the radar works, okay? So hold up. So here we go, guys. This is how the ground radar works, okay? So you can see right there on the right side of the screen that the radar is detecting the moving targets. So you can clearly see that we have 3 columns of moving targets here. One there, and one there. And as you see, it's detecting the 3 of them. So it only detects targets that are moving, which is pretty sad. The Su-24 can detect targets that are not moving, that are actually standing still, but it cannot lock them. And these radars cannot, like, they can lock them, but it's not targets that are moving, right? So here we are detecting actually friendlies. I just realized because of the range. But yeah, it's detecting the enemies right down there in the 30-kilometer mark. You have TWS as well, so as you see, it's actually telling you where to look. And you, of course, you can lock onto them, and they will be locked over here as well, right? My zoom button is not working. I forgot to do this, but yeah. And then you can just zoom in, and then you can fire the bomb, right? For example, I mean, this is a very far away shot. I don't think it's gonna hit at 18 kilometers here because we are kind of very slow, but you get the idea, right? So you just can use the radar to find targets. They just have to be moving and not standing still. This is the case for the Su-34 as well, okay? So don't you worry, the Russians have that thing as well. In real life, I have a feeling that it's a bit different, but oh well, it is what it is. So here we have it, right? The detection of ground vehicles with aircraft. Okay, so that's pretty good. Actually, I think it might actually get there. But anyway, guys, basically this is it. It's an amazing aircraft. It really is it's gonna be one of the best ones in the game. It's really multi-role. It can do everything. Let's see how it is actually in the game when it's added, but I have a feeling that it's going to be, since dogfights are not that important anymore as they used to be, you can get away with flying with this thing in normal matches and shoot down a lot of aircraft. It's just that it's gonna take a little bit of getting used to the extra weight that you are carrying around. But to be honest, I gotta say, this is the coolest F-15 in the game. This is already my favorite because I always love biplated aircraft like this. They look way better in my opinion. It's just that they're normally heavier and stuff, but still, you know how it is, right? So I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe. I will be covering, on the very least, the 4 new aircraft, the Tornado, the Su-34, F-15E, and Su-34, F-117, yeah, the F-117 as well. So keep an eye out. I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, and bye guys. See you.